Okay, for real, we're getting started now. Hey guys, I'm gonna be taking you through the process of how I do my art pieces. Usually, they're for my client called the Stash Home. They're actually about 20 minutes from where I live. It usually goes in two ways. It's either a commissioned piece, which someone has asked for a specific size, specific colors, and a specific look. It really depends on what they want. The second thing that I do is make a batch of paintings. So about like 3 to 4 pieces at one time and send it off to my client that I just mentioned, the Stash Home Furniture. So right now I've got an order of 3 pieces right now and then a couple more up next. So really I've got the creative freedom to create whatever I want. It's not a commission piece. I can bring in whatever size. Usually I do 36 by 48. Is the smaller one, and then I do something that's pretty much my height. It's a 48 by 60. Those are the 2 main sizes that I do. So I'm going to be creating 2 of 36 by 48s and 1 of 48 by 60, the one that's my height. But in this video, I'm going to take you through just one of them. So the process for me kind of begins way before I have been asked for a piece. It's the same as for most of us, just scrolling through Instagram or Pinterest is my second place. So I kind of go back and forth between Instagram and Pinterest. Most of my ideas I get from there, and these are kind of like brewing in my head until someone asks me or until I start working on a piece. So what I do is I'm super into textured pieces. So any kind of texture, you know, resin is one thing I work with, stones, plaster of Paris, all-purpose filler. Those are all the materials, the texture-based media that I work with. So there are a lot of artists that you'll find on social media have taken the route of one specific style. For example, Art by Sajan. I hope I pronounced his name right. He does some really cool abstract. I'm not sure if you can see that, but he does some really cool abstract that's textured to something like this. I don't know if you can. I keep him in mind for that acrylic look where there's a lot of texture, there's a lot of playing around with just texture that's not too out on your face, but kind of that abstract classic look. Then I have other people for resin art. Art by Ferial is one of the resin artists that I've been following since I started. Since I started resin, I'd say. She does really cool resin art, like some stuff like this, resin geode art. I look at her style, I save her pieces, and I use that for inspo as well. So these are like some of the artists that I usually had. It's like my mini community in my head of, you know, different types of artists that I like. It has to do with any kind of work, you know, whenever you go into work, you study people that you like, their work that you like. So that's one thing. So the first thing is I have these people whose style I like because they always say creativity does not start with you. You actually steal like an artist, and that's very true because the creative process starts from you getting inspired by someone or someone's piece. So you don't have to start with this brilliant new out of the box, out of the world idea that came out of nowhere. No, not always. You actually, you know, have people around you that you get inspired by. So steal like an artist, which is what we're doing. Then comes the piece. So right now I've got 3 pieces to work on. Right now I want to kind of play around with resin in terms of a geode style and kind of go crazy, honestly. Black and gold, I really want to play with golds this time in this batch. The painting that I'm going to take you through in this video is going to be something like black and goldy and rustic and texture and all that fun stuff. So the next step is what I'm going to show you is me kind of gathering inspo around the colors and the style that I want. The idea kind of starts in my head, and then I'm like, okay, where did I last see this, and can I point it out? So this is a piece that I saw recently by Sarah Palazzo Art. I hope I haven't butchered her name, but it's this beautiful gold and black piece she's done, and she's played a lot with texture, which looked like pumice. I'm gonna play with plaster of Paris a little. I'm gonna, you know, kind of lay down the piece. But these are the colors that I want. So here's the thing, right? I've got the general spark. Now I want to boil it down to what is the piece that I kind of envision, because I get that little kind of a mood board spark, but now what do I actually want the painting to look like? So then the next question is, well, how do I want my painting to flow? I was looking at a lot of photos on Pinterest, then I go back to Pinterest, like I'm trying to really look for the flow of things. Like, what do I want? How do I want my painting to flow? Directionally, basically. So then I have this Illustrator on my iPad. And so there was an ad that popped up on my Instagram, and I really like the flow of this. So if you see, like, it's kind of like coming, it's like fire. Love it. It has this whole fiery look to it. Love it. Oh my god, can't wait to do this piece. So it's gonna kind of be like darkish, based on, like, you saw the photo of that woman whose art I just showed you had like gold and whites and all that texture. That's gonna be at the bottom, and then it's gonna like flare out. That's where my imagination and my personal creativity kicks in. You see how we steal it like an artist and add our own touch to it. So this is something what I'm planning to do, and it's gonna have like stones and everything. It's similar to what I do. So this is, you know, I tied back to my signature style, which is something like this, one of my recent pieces. So it's gonna look something like that. The next step is I have the general idea to lay it down, I've played around, I know what I want. Now for part 3, and this is very important. This is something I've learned about art and just life in general that art's taught me about, is letting it flow. And so what I'm gonna do is just kind of prep my canvas, you know, draw out whatever I want, the direction and all that. And then I am just gonna, you know, I've set an intention for what I want of the piece, but I also, on the other hand, set an intention to let go wherever I want and not get stuck with the idea that I started with, because that gets me to explore and find my own style out. And that's how I've, you know, uncovered my own signature style so far. So that's an intention I set, which is, hey, I'm going to the piece and I'm not gonna control the outcome. I'm gonna give it a general direction of where I want to take it, and then I'm gonna let it go and let it follow its own course and see what the piece turns out like. So let's begin. Alright guys, I am in my painter's hoodie and I've got my hair tied up. That means I'm all ready to go. So I'm gonna bring my canvas in right now and let's get started. So these were the stones I was talking about, the celestial stones. I find them on Amazon. Great fun. So I get them in half and 1/4 sized. So these are 1/4 sized. This is what they look like. I don't know if you can see them, but absolutely great for stonework. Let me show you. So like this piece is an example of a piece that I made with these stones. This is in progress, but this is basically all those stones. Alright, so I got dried X. I've got this from before, my gesso or gesso. I got flex paste. This is something I'm gonna try out for the first time. Let's see how it goes. I think this is gonna go pretty well. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do with it. Pumice, I think I'm just gonna return it, you know. I think I'm gonna return this thing, and then I got a bunch of spray paints. All right, guys, so it's basically 4 weeks later, and the piece is finally finished. So I think I left off kind of showing you the texture that I put together, and what I was kind of thinking. The general idea was to have, the general idea was pretty much how it turned out to be for the most part. So the idea was to have like texture kind of flow out to clear resin, which is this part right here. And it kind of really did come out like this. I wasn't sure about what I was gonna do with the stones, but I went on my intuition. I went with kind of playing around with it, and I think it turned out pretty well. It feels like this dramatic, dramatic piece. So I call this piece Mystique, and it's because of how it turned out. I went to the show in Vegas, the Circus Soleil. I don't know. I never get it right. So the show was Mystique that we went to, and I kind of feel a very similar vibe for some reason. I just feel like there's just stuff kind of flowing through and kind of coming out from the bottom, kind of like flames as I wanted it to be. And we've got stones and we've got gold kind of like flowing around, and we also have texture and personality. So it's the perfect Mystique piece. Anyway, so the piece turned out pretty well. I was a little lost when I first put the texture together. I wasn't sure how it's gonna go. But really the process from where I left off was laying down drywall. That's what I did. So the first layer was drywall, and I mixed in stones and kind of like sand that I found off of Michael's, and I've used that in the past. I used it with plaster of Paris in the past, and what I did was I took plaster of Paris and I mixed it with glue, and I put in all the stone while I was layering it on. But I didn't use plaster of Paris this time because plaster of Paris very easily chips off, and I was a little scared of that chipping off of the canvas. So what I did was I tried out drywall, which I've tried in the past after the first time I tried plaster of Paris, and it stuck pretty well to the canvas without resin on top, without a resin coating. So I went with that. It was a pink drywall that I got from Walmart, and then I layered that on, mixed it with the sand that I got from Michael's, and it was different size. So the black one is bigger and the white one is finer sand. So I had like a mix of like bigger and smaller chunks of sand. You'll see in the videos. And then I let that dry off. Then I started painting. I gave the piece a general background. That's what I like to do, have a general background before I go in with resin, unless I'm doing a geode, which is the next video I'm going to post, and I'm going to talk about how I created that geode. But went in with the paint and had my blacks down, and then I started going into my silvers, and I went over with spray paint, because that spray paint is usually metallic silver, which illuminates from the back right here. So this is kind of like a mix of like a champagne-y spray paint and silver spray paint, and then a mix of like gray spray paint that's matte. And that way kind of, under different lighting, you can see the piece kind of stand out, just like the piece at the back that I have. I have silvers and darks, and this piece is kind of two-dimensional in the sense of colors as well. So that's what I tried to do with this piece as well. And then for the stones, I showed you the two size stones that I got from Amazon, and I got a third size from Michael's. So all of this basically are the gray, bigger chunks of stones, because I wanted this to kind of like be a very chunky bit, this leaf right here that I did. And then these right here are smaller ones, so they were kind of beigey in tone, and I had those lay over on this side. And these smaller bits are actually the ones that I got from Michael, so I layered that on top of it. I sprinkled them on, and then the same thing for this side. So the glass effect is the ones that I got from Amazon. And then, these were put on after I put the first layer of resin. I added no color to resin. So this was a clear coat of resin. Sometimes I go in with I add color to the resin. I didn't this time around. This is just plain resin, and it has its beauty of its own. The only color I added was this gold ink right here. This is gold. This is something I got from Michael's as well. You can find it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I think it's from Craft by You, something like that. You can get different types of alcohol, metallic, oil-based inks. The only thing you need to look out for is whether it's kind of like bronzy or brassy. I like it to be a little cool toned, not as brassy, so it looks very royal. And then the last thing I did was paint this texture that I got from that rubbery texture that you get from the hardware store as well. I don't know if I can show it to you right now because it's not nearby, but on top of this, I don't know if I told you, but I added that rubbery texture that you get from any hardware store. I got that from Walmart as well. It's stuff that you put in your bathroom to seal your bathtub. You know, that white stuff? It's that rubbery texture. And so I put that on, went on perfectly, wasn't coming off perfect. That's the goal always. And then I painted it with gold paint that I got from Michael's as well. And then I went over it with a gold marker, because the gold marker is a bit shinier than the paint that I go for. So that gold marker, you often see me kind of go over my paintings in the end and kind of, bring out little details with it. So that's basically what I did. This piece was basically ready in about 3 days or so. It didn't take a lot of time, but it took me at least 2 to 3 days to just kind of sit with it. I had my moments with this piece. I just sat with it and I thought about, okay, where do I want to take this piece? Because I was a little stuck before I put resin on it. I was like, once I put resin on it, it's going to be sealed. I can't change it. So do I want it to be plain resin, or do I still want to play around with color? What do I want out of this piece? I kind of just sat around with it, and I just liked the simplicity of it. And I was envisioning how the stones are going to turn out, because once they do, I don't want a lot going on, because I already have texture that I want to bring attention to, which is at the bottom. So it starts with the bottom, which is subtle, but like that grungy personality to it. And it actually did turn out as fire that I wanted it to look like as well, in a way, especially this bit. So this bit, I just put that ink that I was talking about that I got from, it's an ink pot that I got from Michael's, and I just put it with a dropper. And that's pretty much about it, what I did with the piece.